Good afternoon, everyone. The November 26th, 2024 regular council meeting is called to order at 4 o'clock. And there's an echo over there. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelethat on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Have all the council members received the late item, which is a letter from ARIF regarding a flood assurance statement? Yes. I will move that council amend the agenda by adding the late item 221 Monado Road, OCP and subdivision application flood assurance statement as correspondence item 9.3. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Councillor Anderson. Councillor Mafty seconds. All in favor? Councillor Hoare, are you in favor? None opposed. That carries. Our next agenda item is 4.1, October 29th, 2024 Special Council Meeting Minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the October 29th, 2024 Special Council Meeting Minutes as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Kennington.
Second.
Councillor Mafty. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. We have two delegations this afternoon as Pacific Rim School District is unable to present. Delegates are asked to limit their presentations to 10 minutes approximately. Our first delegation is from Tourism Ucluelet. This delegation is about Tourism Ucluelet activities and their tactical plan. Welcome, Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just give me 2 seconds while I figure out the sharing of my screen. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, very much for having me here today. My name is Nicholas Curry, and I am the Tourism Development Specialist at Tourism Ucluelet, which is a really long title to say that I manage the day-to-day operations there. So today I'm just going to give you a quick update on the 4VI group, as well as run through some of the outline of the 2025 MRDT tactical plan. I did also just want to acknowledge that Tourism Ucluelet is honored to operate on the traditional territory of the Ucluelet First Nation, and just recognize that they've been caretakers of this land for time immemorial and have deep ancestral and contemporary connections to this geographic area. So, just as a brief update, back in March or in spring of 2024, Tourism Ucluelet started working with the 4VI group. And since that time, they've kind of split the group into three distinct entities, which includes the 4TVI Stewardship, Forever Strategies, as well as the For Good Social Impact Fund. And all of that's just housed under the 4VI Social Enterprise Group. So all of this kind of happened just as a way to facilitate a more clearer definition between each three of these categories. So when you break it down, really, so the 4TVI Stewardship Group, that's the Vancouver Island Tourism. So that's the long-standing regional organization that continues to support the needs of communities and tourism businesses through government-funded work across Vancouver Island. And then you have the Forever Strategies, and so that would be the category that I work under. And we have professional services that the company offers. So looking at innovative and impactful sustainability services, storytelling, and strategic planning solutions. From that, any profits captured for Forever are then put into a For Good social impact fund, which then get reinvested back into the community. So this whole model was brought forward and facilitated just to mark the change, recognizing that destination marketing organizations needed to make a shift to destination management organizations. And so in essence, this is the models that's been created to facilitate the social enterprise. If you have more questions specifically on that, we can touch on that later. So the 2025 MRDT tactical plan for Ucluelet. I'm not going to dive too much into the vision, mission, or funding sources because they're the exact same as the 5-year plan that was submitted in 2023. But in essence, Tourism Ucluelet is promoting conscientious visitors and year-round conscientious visitors for year-round experience that are trying to dive into immersive and restorative West Coast experiences. I'm just gonna move forward. Okay, and so brand strategy. So the brand will emphasize Ucluelet's unique blend of natural beauty, rugged charm, and community spirit. We're going to be highlighting key activities such as local dining scene, the coastline, wildlife viewing opportunities, and outdoor adventures. We will position Ucluelet as the gateway to the Barkley Sound and Pacific Rim National Park. Marketing efforts are going to focus on attracting high-value as well as value-aligned travelers who seek meaningful connections with nature and culture. This will be reflected in messaging that highlights off-season travel opportunities, responsible tourism practices, and the unique experiences Ucluelet offers year-round. And so there's obviously going to be some anticipated challenges, and we see economic pressures on travelers being a top priority there, competition from other destinations, as well as environmental and infrastructure strain, workforce and housing shortages, balancing sustainability and growth, seasonal dispersion of visitors, and capturing the authentic voice of a diverse community, as well as making sure that our stakeholders are engaged and responsive to all of our activities. And so some of the goals within that are to increase off-season visitation. We want to strengthen Ucluelet's brand identity, promote responsible and sustainable tourism, target values-aligned visitors, celebrate local culture and indigenous heritage, and create efficient internal systems and leverage data and communication. Some of the key strategies within that. So really emphasizing working with local talents and creatives. We want to highlight sustainability initiatives, and we want to use data-driven audience targeting. We want to pursue strategic growth management, and we want to implement the tourism master plan. So really revitalize that plan. In 2024, we continue to see a growth across both MRDT and OAP. So there's a significant amount of growth in the early months, January through May, which represents increased visitation through the shoulder seasons. And projections for AirDNA reveal that this visitation will continue moderately throughout the winter. In 2025, we plan to increase our budget from what we've seen in both 2023 and 2024. And the majority of this is going to go towards destination and product management. For our kind of marketing always-on tactics, so we're going to be working with organic social media. We want to focus on amplifying stakeholder content and events, and really make sure that we have a structured planning and process system in place. And we want to use software like DashThis to have a reporting system to make sure that our communication is effective. With the website, we want to introduce more dynamic visual content, create more integrated and informative written content, do an events calendar revamp, have stronger call to actions throughout, do a performance audit and a roadmap for improvements, and then really update the stakeholders and information sections so that we're getting that feedback from stakeholders and that the systems, everyone's kind of communicating a little bit better to each other. We're going to, for consumer asset development, we're going to increase our library. We're going to work with local creators. We want to find local writers to write fun and informative content for our blogs. And we want to really focus on photography and video. Marketing campaigns, so we really want to encourage local spending, seasonal dispersion, and environmental stewardship. We're going to aim to increase our brand visibility, and we're going to work with stakeholders as well as the board to find the right voice and tone that feels authentic to Ucluelet. We'll continue working in media advertising as well, pursuing television, email marketing, paid search, display, and third-party advertising. And then we have some partnership marketing, so DBC consortiums. Those are co-op programs. We got the BC Ale Trail, Bird Trail, Paddle BC, and Fishing BC. And we've put together a proposal for a co-op program that's going to connect Port Alberni, Bamfield, Ucluelet, and Tofino. And the main goal of this is to try and shift the negative perception of traveling Highway 4. And so we're going to try and flip that on the switch and so that's pending funding, but the application has gone on and we're pretty excited about that. Something I'm really excited about is dropping like a new line of merchandise to sell at our visitor centers. And I want to try and really engage the community by having like an open source contest format so that the imagery is sourced by people that live here and that we can bring that to life and kind of get some excitement around that. And in the destination and product experience management category, so as I mentioned before, this is where we're going to increase our spending. And we see this spending as an investment in the tourism sector with the goals of creating a fantastic visitor experience, but also a vibrant and thriving business community. We want to facilitate this growth. In order to facilitate this growth, we're also allocating some funds to staffing to make sure that we're not just saying we're going to do everything, but we're actually going to be able to implement these programs. Within the industry development and training, we're planning on sending attendees to some conferences. We want to hold digital literacy and training workshops within the community, have some sustainability and environmental stewardship education programs. So this will include working with the Chamber of Commerce to do the ambassador program update and make sure that we have training and resource kits available for businesses. We want to do a vertical video tutorial on asset development. We're going to do product development workshops and a coaching program, so focusing on either indigenous businesses or off-season. So it's going to be like a funding program to try and get some new initiatives lifted off the ground here. And then working with the chambers to put together a youth tourism and hospitality awareness day as well. In terms of the product experience enhancement, we really want to create better landing pages within our own website. We want to implement that tourism master plan. It's got so many great ideas, and it just didn't quite have the legs to land right away. I think everyone was, anyway, so it's a very long document that is filled with great ideas, and we're excited to put that into action. We plan on having the events and experience fund grant program continue moving forward. We're going to try and increase the total dollar amount to that and just make sure that the application process is clearer and reaches the whole community. And we're going to start doing some resident perception and tracking as well as some engagement. One of the ideas there is to have a Tourism Tuesday at our office and just bring people in to kind of talk more about tourism. And we're going to do research and evaluation. So we want to look at consumer profiles as well as make sure that we have some data out there on what the visitor experience is like. So we'll be collecting data that way as well. For our visitor center and information services, it's been going really well so far. We're getting lots of great reviews from all of our online, and so we just want to improve and smooth that out a little bit, make sure that we're going to upgrade our digital tools, enhance the visitor service spaces. So make sure that they have like nice filtered water stations at all of them. At the downtown core office, which operates in the summer months, we're putting in some new furniture and working with the Historical Society to make it a little more interactive and a little more fun for people to come into. And then we want to strengthen the responsible traveling messaging that we have, as well as foster stakeholder engagement. So just making sure that we have, again, that communication cycle between us as well as our stakeholders. And then finalize the implementation of a visitor service Indigenous learning grant that we received in 2024. That's it for my presentation. Any questions from everyone? I try it. It was long. I tried to cut it down there for you. So
You're pretty close. I think you were 13 minutes.
okay,
No problem.
Okay.
Any questions from council? Councillor Anderson?
Whereabouts is the visitor center? Is that just down on Main Street, in that building?
Yeah. So two. So we operate the Pacific Rim Visitor Center, which is at the junction, and that's the main one. And then in the summer months, this was our first year doing it, where we operated right in between the BCL as well as Shipwreck Pizza.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And people are welcome to go into either of those at any time, pretty much, when you're open.
When we're open, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Speaking of the Pacific Rim Visitor Center, is there any indication from Parks what the plan is for that building? Because it seems to be deteriorating.
Yes, it's the $1 million question. As we understand, Parks does not want to put any major upgrades or money into the building. So there will be a time in the near or distant future that building will either need investment from somewhere else, or we'll need a new building, or there will need to be we have some ideas and strategies for what we'll do when that comes. But eventually we'll have to move away from that.
Yeah, 30 years ago it was just a little prefab shed basically that somebody worked out of, and it worked perfectly fine for many years. But that might be going back to the past to do something different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a few options out there.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, and thanks for coming here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Our next delegation is from WildSafe BC Pacific Rim. Mr. Hansen.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here to present an overview of the 7th season for WildSafe BC Pacific Rim. My name's Bob Hansen. I'm the community coordinator, and I'd like to introduce your new full-time year-round coordinator, Caitlin Bodem.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I've met some of you at the BCM, or UBCM. As Bob said, I'm the new full-time year-round community coordinator. Bob's retiring at the end of this week. So, woohoo!
Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having us today. I'm really excited to be here and in this position, and very excited to share my passion for wildlife conservation with the community. I'll move closer. Okay, so on the agenda today, we're going to be reviewing our entire season. Some of that will include reports, wildlife reports that we received in our community, the different types of conflict that we also encountered, the different types of education that we provided as WildSafe BC community coordinators to visitors and residents, and our goals for the coming year. Oh shoot, sorry. There we go. Okay, so just a recap of WildSafe BC. We are the provincial leader in preventing human-wildlife conflict within our community. We're a registered charity and nonprofit organization. We focus on the root cause of human-wildlife conflict within our community and address it through education. So ultimately, we aim to keep wildlife wild and our community safe. Let's see if I can get it this time. All right, there we go.
Thank you. So the graphic on the right shows, oh, yeah. The graphic on the right shows how we work hand in hand and closely within the community. We work a lot with bylaw services. We also work very closely with the Conservation Officer Service to collectively prevent and reduce human-wildlife conflicts in Ucluelet and the region. The numbers on the left give you some sense of the levels of wildlife activity in our region this year. So 322 bear reports, 73 wolf reports, quite a marked increase in that category, 7 cougar, and of course 38 deer, no surprise, and 1 elk, which was a surprise. The bulk of the reports came in through the RAP line, and the next largest source of reports was through social media. And then the third category were direct reports to ourselves. And overall, 441 wildlife reports in Pacific Rim. And since Friday, we can add quite a few numbers to those totals.
Okay, so human-wildlife conflict. So 90% of the human-wildlife conflict that we received this year were related to bears accessing unsecured carts. So just a reminder, those poly carts are not bear-proof. They are bear-resistant when they are used accurately. So 22 of those reports were related to unanchored carts that were dragged away by bears. 120 were carabiners that were broken and had to be repaired. And then 138 were the poly carts that were accessed by the bears. 55 were related to the organic carts, 83 garbage, and let's see, behind there, 38 were related to recycling. So there you go. There's a picture in our community of a bear accessing an unsecured organic cart and dragging it away. The photo on the left is a picture of a unsecured organic cart at a staff accommodation that was reported earlier this season. So we are reminding residents how important it is to properly secure your carts using the appropriate materials. So ensuring that those carts are used with clips. If they are broken, to replace them with steel carabiners as shown in the slide, as well as using a chain and a cement block to prevent the bear from dragging those carts away. And this is a picture of an address in the community that has received multiple reports, multiple issues with a bear, heavily food conditioned bear, breaking those brass clips and having to get them replaced multiple times.
So that's the picture in regards to residential carts, but there's many other kinds of waste containers in the community. And we did see bears access 23 different types of commercial bins to access garbage. So bins that are vulnerable to bears and not secured. So most of you will be familiar with the term food condition bears. So the total number of bears this year was 9 food condition bears, 3 in Tofino, 2 in Ucluelet, 1 in Millstream, 1 in Port Albion, 1 in Itatsu, and 1 at the junction. And the picture at the four-way stop shows the behavior of a food condition bear going across the crosswalk in the middle of the day. Some other numbers that fill out the picture of human-bear coexistent challenges. So we had 3 buildings that were entered by bears, 3 vehicles opened by bears, 3 shed structures broken into by bears. Chickens were lost at 4 coops, and 2 cases of bears accessing fruit and garden crops. A very concerning aspect of human-bear conflict is when we're in very close proximity with these bears. There were 21 very close encounters. In 4 cases, the bears actually bluff charged people. In 5 instances, residents used bear spray, and there was 1 attack on a dog. So some of the key numbers from the season, and 1 bear trapped and translocated, 1 bear killed in a vehicle collision, and 1 food condition bear put down. So that's the 2nd year we've had 1 bear put down. So on the face of it, that's very encouraging. But there is a much more concerning story behind those numbers. If you think back to 2023, was the first full season of the residential cart system. And in the years leading up to 2023, we had, I think over a 3-year period, 38 food condition bears put down. The new cart system came in, and we saw a dramatic drop in the types of conflicts, to the point that it was almost exclusively the residential cart system. And we had 9 bears by the end of last year that had learned how to break into those carts. We think that many of those same bears came back this year, because the very first reports we had were bears breaking into carts again. And now at this end of the season, we think many of those same bears have actually enhanced and increased their skill in breaking into the residential cart system. So we had twice the number of carts broken into this year as last year. So what that sets us up for is that next year we'll have these bears returning most likely again. And if any of them are sows that come back with new cubs, that we could enter into a dynamic where we see generational learning year to year. So those skills breaking into these carts could become more common within our local bear population year to year to year. So it really emphasizes the urgency around ensuring that all residential carts are properly anchored and all of them have the stronger steel carabiners. If we can achieve those 2 objectives, it'll drastically decrease our vulnerability to conflicts going forward. On the flip side, if we don't, I'm very concerned for the future years. So in terms of wolf reports, we've had many years with very few wolf reports. This year was dramatically different. And 50 sightings, 9 close encounters, 1 attack where a dog was taken off a back porch. We hadn't seen that in many years. And of course, wolves hunting deer on the school fields and other types of reports. And the most recent report from like an hour ago, a video of a wolf at the Amphitrite at where the booth is for the Wild Pacific Trail. So they're here. These wolves we think are new wolves, and they're behaving differently than the wolves that were here before. So because of that, we really increased our efforts around educating on how to coexist with wolves, how to protect pets, how to keep wolves wild and wary of people, which ultimately keeps them alive and prevents conflict.
Okay, so thanks to the district's ongoing support and local businesses' support, we were able to hire a full-time year-round community coordinator, which is fantastic to provide that continuous education throughout the year. This year, we did 26 different presentations to 536 participants, and that included visitors as well as residents. We also had 14 display booths, which were educational and interactive booths. They were held throughout the community. So at the aquarium, at Thornton Hatchery, at the Wild Pacific Trail, Yuki Days, as well as Ucluelet Co-op, which was specific to securing carts. We targeted residents. And then not only do we do these community events, but we also do one-on-one education with residents as well as local businesses. And in that form, we do door-to-door education. And we reached 646 contacts this season, and that is ongoing. We have also done 4 bear spray workshops. We held the first community pumpkin drop-off following Halloween. The one was here in Ucluelet. That proved to be quite the success. We've also been involved with 13 media appearances from the local newspaper, radio, as well as we were involved with a documentary. We have worked closely with local businesses such as Ucluelet Co-op, as well as the Black Rock Oceanfront Resort, working with management as well as staff, ensuring that their infrastructure meets wild safe standards, and training their staff to ensure that we can reduce the human-wildlife conflict in the area. We also completed a bin tagging session. And over to Bob.
Yes. So another dimension of our program, besides the education, training, and outreach, is electric fencing. And this year was another busy year. We fenced 3 chicken coops, 5 cart enclosures at staff houses, a bunch of beehives, 2 industrial garbage enclosures, and 2 large gardens. And that brings our total since the program began up to 52 electric fencing projects. So moving forward, the roadmap ahead, as we talk about every year, is to continue expanding the Ucluelet Wild Safe Business Network. We'd really like to work closely with the district, staff and management on creating and implementing a Ucluelet Wildlife Attractant Management Bylaw, increase youth engagement, more presence in the school with the Wild Safe Rangers program and the First Nations Warrior Youth programs, expand education and programming in all facets for residents and visitors year-round, and keep pursuing Ucluelet Bear Smart status. Ucluelet is about 85% there and meeting those tough requirements for that status, but it's really close. We're getting closer every year. And secure a long-term funding model to allow for a permanent year-round full-time program. And you'll see an attachment that that you were given with a funding increase proposal request, and also some information on the possibility of accessing Resort Municipality Initiative funding that we learned about from Whistler.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor and Council, for having us today. We have a short video. I know we're over time, but we have a short video to share with you, which is a recap of our 2024 season. it. Open to questions.
Great, thank you so much. I have a quick question about the wildlife attractant bylaw. Do you have some wording that you could pass on to staff about that?
Yes, Abby has it. And actually, Brittany was part of our working group that developed the Tofino Wildlife Attractant Management Bylaw. So she's very familiar with it as well.
Great, thank you. And then my other question was about using RMI funds. We just had an open house here on resort development strategy for the next 4 years. And on the survey, I noticed that WildSafe was not an option for people to choose as something to spend RMI money on. So just looking to staff to see how we can maybe move forward with that.
So the resort development strategy is a work in progress that council will be able to provide direction on. I believe Ms. Fortune will have a report in due course on that. So if there's other opportunities to allocate some of those fundings to new programs that we haven't considered before or council hasn't considered, those can be contemplated through that process.
Great, because the survey is still open to the public, is it not? Yes. Any questions from council? Councillor Mafty?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I know that we've often had discussions about how RMI money is spent and how it's collected and where it goes and the mechanisms. And I've always argued that, you know, as a tourist community, we need to invest in programs that can empower tourists. And I thought it was really convenient that you came right after Nick, and funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is exactly the kind of program that the community would be really wise to consider supporting. I think it's money well spent, and if we're going to continue to attract people here and have them, you know, enjoy their time and integrate into the community and into the lifestyle, I think this is a pretty critical part of it for people to understand. And obviously the work that you guys do, you know, you've been doing a lot with very little, and looking at the amounts that you guys mentioned in your report, it seems very reasonable to me in terms of what we're getting for that money and what we're supporting for that money. So I just want to vocally go on the record and state my support for your requests and for the program.
Thank you. We've had a couple of meetings. District of Tofino is also going to explore this possibility. It was a bit of a revelation at the UN BC convention to hear Whistler talking about how it's been their main source of funding for their bear safety education program since 2010. So thanks for that.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Anderson?
No, just I guess a comment, or I just want to say thanks for everything you've done. It's been great having you around here, and we see you all over the place, and I always bring my family up, and you're always both you guys are great to chat about things. So you will be missed, and Caitlin, welcome aboard. It's gonna be great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, the program's in very good hands, I can assure you, from working the last 6 months with Caitlin, and thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah.
And I'll reiterate, thank you very much for all your work. I was at your Yuki Days booth, and it looked like it was super well attended, so that was nice to see.
And nonstop, start to finish every day, so it was great.
Yeah, good
Great
work.
fun.
Thank you. Councillor Hoare, anything from you?
Well, a thank you to Bob for all of the years of hard work, for sure. And I reiterate what I believe Councillor Mafty said, is the amount of work you guys have been able to do over the past years with absolute minimal funding is very impressive. And I really am, I would like to put, myself behind exploring using the RMI funds to support the program, because I feel we should be a bear smart community. We have a lot of wildlife conflicts, and the more we can educate people, the better. So welcome, Caitlin, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Well, some of us were hoping to get another Bear Aware calendar done before you retired, Bob, but looks like that's not going to happen if you're retiring this week.
Well, I'm game if you are.
Perfect. All right. So thank you for your presentation, and we'll work with staff to look at that bylaw and the RMI funding. Thank you. Is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, there are 6 report items tonight. The first report item is 7.1 ADU Covenant Authorization for 828 Rainforest Drive. This report will be presented by the Director of Community Planning, Mr. Gregg.
Thank you, through the mayor. It's quite straightforward. This is a covenant that's required. The zoning bylaw requires that when building an accessory dwelling unit on a residential property that the owner register a restrictive covenant that basically just precludes subdivision or strata titling that unit. And so there's a template that is provided, and this is an ADU that's under review, and so they're getting ahead of things, but it would need council authorization. So if there's any questions, I can answer them.
Looks pretty straightforward. Any questions from council? There is a recommendation. If anyone would like to move that. Councillor Anderson?
I'll move the council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the Section 219 restrictive covenant for 828 Rainforest Drive for registration at the Land Title Office.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
I think Councillor Kennington just beat you, Councillor Hoare.
Mike wasn't on, so I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you. The second report item is 7.2 Resort Development Strategy for First Nations Projects. This report will be presented by the Director of Community Services, Ms. Fortune.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you have a recommendation to direct staff to engage Eutelsat on formally supporting and guidance on proposed heritage and cultural awareness projects. Sorry, I'll speak a little louder. As laid out in the current development RDS, the district will be supporting Eutelsat to support shared vision and strategy to support Indigenous tourism in the Youth area. I met recently with Melissa Boucher, Manager of Intergovernmental Affairs, Communications and Public Relations at the Eutelsat government, and through this process and her working with other staff at YG, they've presented the following projects. Would you like me to go through the projects?
I think it'd be nice for the public to hear.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so there's 6 potential projects, and these are potential projects. One is to increase the presence of Nuu-chah-nulth language throughout the community by adding a stop sticker on this district stop sign, so the actual Eutelsat word for stop. The second would be to install Nuu-chah-nulth place names throughout various locations in the community, i.e. Big Beach, Aphrodite Point, Terrace Beach. Increase cultural awareness through storyboards at Aphrodite House, so that would be inside the house itself. Design and install a mural at the bottom of Aphrodite House depicting Eutelsat heritage and culture. So on the bottom area that you can see from the pathway would be on the bottom rung, which I think would be kind of neat. Request the design of totem pole for either the Village Green or Aphrodite Point. And lastly, look at business plaque systems where the shows that the businesses operate on the traditional territory of the Eutelsat. Those are the key ones. And then what we would do is if there is a desire from council to move forward, then I would work with Melissa to work with the Ucluelet government themselves and ensure that these are projects that are still wanted to be done. And then we'll start costing them out, basically. Any questions?
I hadn't heard about the business plaque program. That's interesting.
Yeah, it could be very interesting. So when we'd have to develop it. It's just in the thinking stages at this point, but it would allow the businesses themselves to put plaques on their buildings.
Recognizing that they're in the traditional territory.
That's correct, yes.
Great. So so the YG have agreed that these are projects that they would love to see happen?
That is correct, yes.
Great. Any questions from council? Comments? Councillor Hoare?
I love the idea of the mural. And I wonder how Councillor Mafty feels about the New Chalmouth word for stop on the four-way stop sign. Just
ouch.
Leave the guy alone.
That's a question, I think.
You just wanted to stop.
Yeah, I feel great about that, John.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Hoare. All right, there is a recommendation if someone would like to move that.
Sure, I'll jump on that as well.
Councillor Anderson?
Oh, my glasses. I will move that council direct staff to engage the Ucluelet on formalizing support and guidance on proposed heritage and cultural awareness projects funded through the Resort Municipality Initiative in an amount up to $95,202 as part of the 2002-2024 Resort Development Strategy.
I think it's 2022, not 2002.
Oh, sorry, 2022. Do you want me to start again or just?
No, we'll know what you meant. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed, and that carries. Thank you. Great report. The next report item is 7.3, 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan capital projects. This verbal report will be presented by the Director of Finance, Mr. Cadman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick second while I set up the presentation. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So, as we said, this is the beginning of the budget presentation. So this is the first presentation. It will be on capital projects. On the slide, we have the proposed cycle. So this meeting will be talking about capital projects. The December 10th meeting will be operational. And then January 30th, we'll be coming back to propose the full budget as well as going into the open house. We've decided to keep the open house because last year we got some good feedback and we were able to incorporate that into the updated budget. So basically until January 30th, that's pretty set. Based on the feedback we get from the open house, then we can decide if we want to go ahead with the proposed budget or whether we need to backtrack and come up with a revised budget. So essentially up until January 30th is set. Based on feedback, we can decide if we want to roll ahead or if we want to take some feedback and then move ahead. We decided to bring the budget open house earlier into the cycle. That way we have an idea earlier on if we're in line with community wants and demands. And then that way we don't wait until later on in the cycle before having to go back to the drawing board. So this slide here, basically, as we go through the presentation, will make more sense. On the right there is the fund legend that just shows how different projects are going to be funded. There's two things that I would like to draw your attention to on the slide. The second point there, the projects on the slide, they're derived from directives from council in the past, as well as from master plans, from sanitary, water, storm, parks, things like that. So they're not projects that we just drew out of the air. And the second thing is that projects can move within the capital plan based on funding. So the idea is we want to bring forward, we want to make these projects happen, but we want to make sure we do it in a way that benefits the community the most. So if grants are available, then we might move a project up just to take advantage of that grant. All right. So as we go through the slides, you'll see a few different colors. Yellow is a carry forward from last year. Those projects that are already funded, we didn't get to them last year, or we're in the process of getting to them. We're not sure if we're going to get it done before year end, so we just marked it on. For example, that backhoe, we have a lead on one. We're just waiting to make the purchase. So the backhoe and the Sierra, both of those are carry forwards from last year. We're just waiting to make the purchase. They're already funded. There's no effect on the budget moving forward. The blue items, those are new additions to the budget. So for this slide, we have the Public Works Manager vehicle. This year, we filled the Manager of Public Works position. So in 2026, we're proposing to get a vehicle. That way the Manager of Public Works can drive to site and will be able to make efficient operations, as opposed to using his personal vehicle. The items in green are things that were already on the slides previously, but we've increased the price to reflect increased cost. So previously the Ford Ranger and the GMC Unit 2 were in 2028, but they were both for 40 grand. So we increased that to 60 grand. It's pretty hard to buy a truck these days for 40 grand. So we increased that to, be in line with replacement value. This is a slide from last year. It has a bit of an example of what we're looking with. You can see on the type right corner that we have a vehicle that's almost a Flintstone-mobile. So it's just a visual of our current fleet and why we need to replace certain items. All right, so on to municipal buildings. So this is the same thing. So yellow just carry forward the storage at UCC and the rec hall replacement plan. Both those are carried forward from this year or from last year, 2024. They're already funded and will be moved forward to 2025. For the UCC heat pumps and for the office trailer at Public Works Yard, both of those have been increased. The Public Works trailer went from 75,000 to 100,000. That's because we didn't take into account the installation costs, which have increased. So that's to get all the electrical and everything set up. And then the 42,000 increase from 35,000, just the inflation on heat pumps, they've gone up. So that just reflects replacement costs or addition costs. Also, I was going through, if there's any questions, please feel free to jump in. Onto the harbor slide. So there's these two projects, Inner Harbor Walkway and the boat launch extension. Both of these are carry forwards from last year and are already funded. As you can see on the slide there, boat launch extension is funded through harbor reserves, and the Inner Harbor Walkway is funded through a mix of harbor reserve and RMI. Harbor projects are interesting. At the end of the year, any net income left over in the harbor is moved to the harbor reserve. So the harbor is great because any net income moves towards replacing and adding to the harbor. All right. So parks and trails, we have a few carry forwards that are listed on the slides there. There's no new additions. We are in the works of the RMI RDS, as you guys are aware. We're also in the works of doing the Parks and Rec master plan. So as those come to fruition this year, there will be updates on the slide as we learn more of the what we should be doing for the capital projects moving forward. As you can see, there's nothing listed in 2029. That will be filled in as we get the RMI and as we get the Parks and Rec master plan done. All right, affordable housing. So same kind of thing. We have two carry forwards, and then there's been no real change on the slide since last year. we're basically waiting for these projects to come to fruition, especially with the Lot 13. We're just waiting to make that contribution. And then I believe there's, with the water tower feasibility, that will be worked on this year as well. So no change on this slide, basically all carry forwards from last year. Okay, for roads. So roads, there was a bit of change. With the Peninsula Road, the 50 grand, there's no change. The paving renewal program is new. The values were still there, we just changed the allocation. So in 2027, there was 300 grand previously allocated to Peninsula Road. Public Works did a great job this year working with Modi to get paving done on Penn Road. So we decided to institute the paving renewal program. So rather than allocate that 300,000 just to Penn Road, we did a general paving program. That way the funds can be used wherever they're needed most at that time. There's originally 300 grand for resurfacing in 2028. We decided to push that out to 2029 just to smooth out the paving allocation over 3 years versus 2. Okay, so for emergency services, so as you can see, there's a few carry forwards there. The engine 2 replacement, Rick did our fire chief did a fantastic job on that. It was originally for 800,000. He managed to get a good deal on it, and so there's a cost savings of $100,000 there, so it got knocked down to 700,000. I believe we're going to start spending money on January of 2025. I think that's when we start doing works on it. I'm not sure on the delivery date, but I believe it's early 2025. We'll be getting a new fire truck, so that's fantastic. The fire hall development plan is in the works. That will also, so I'll skip ahead a bit. The fire hall replacement plan in 2027, that was increased from 6.6 million to 10 million. That's just because the cost of building a fire hall these days. So we'll have a better idea of what that amount is once the development plan is done. But based on our discussions with other municipalities, 10 million is probably likely what we're going to be spending. It could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but it's that seems to be what we're getting at. And then the fire hall capacitor generator, that's a carry forward. It was originally allocated to the UCC previously. That has since been moved to the fire hall. So it's already funded. It's just an internal movement. And then the mini pumper in 2026 was originally allocated for 500,000. Based on a review of the costs, it's expected to be closer to 600,000. So that's the change. Okay. So. All right, so onto the water capital project. So there's only one carry forward currently listed on that submarine side, on that slide, which is the submarine inlet line for 1.3 million. So that will be coming due this year. There is a grant for a substantial portion of it. The grant is for 652,000. The water treatment plant up there for 4.5 in 2025 and 2026. We have a ballpark, that's the assumption, that's the quote that we have right now for the cost. We're not sure when funds will actually be drawn. It could be more in 2025 and less in 2026. So the actual outflows we'll have an idea of in January 2025. So that will update the 5-year financial plan. We don't expect it to be more, but it'll change the allocation. It could potentially be more in 2025, just as the projects are front loaded. As the note on the system, the water system is currently undergoing a comprehensive review. Those findings are not yet captured on this 5-year financial plan. So the years 2026 through 2029 may require updates once we have the review from this review, once we have the results from this review. One other comment I'd just like to make on the 2.5 million for the duplicate reservoir. So projects that are funded by DCCs, they're based on growth. So if that growth is pushed, then the corresponding those projects can be pushed out. So DCC projects aren't set in stone, they are growth related. This is just a slide that we carried forward from last year. I think it gives a good example. They're the two big projects that we discussed coming forward this year. There's the water treatment system, 9.6 million, with ICIP having 7 million in grant funding, and then the water service line of 1.3, of which our contribution is 448,000. All right, on to the sewer capital projects. So this slide has seen quite a few updates since prior years. So as our Director of Public Works presented in the last meeting, the new sanitary sewer project that is proposed is highlighted in blue. How we got those numbers, there was the 12-ish million that was proposed. What we did was we front-loaded the engineering and phase 1, 75% in year 1 and then 25% in year 2. And then we split 50-50 for phase 2 and 3. As we get more information on the exact timing of those outflows, we'll be adjusting the 5-year financial plan. For carry forwards, there's only the one there, which is the performance assessment. So that has already been funded and I believe will be conducted this year. So moving on to the capital summary. So this is a summary of the different departments over the years. So one thing to highlight is that 2025 and 2026 are both front loaded. As you can see, the cost is significantly higher in those years and it peters out. Water and sewer both are inflating those two costs. We'll also have a better idea once we have the master plans for recreation, for water, and the RMI RDS, how that affects years 2026 through 2029. So 2025, we have a relatively good idea. As we get these master plans done, that will affect the latter years. So that's just something to be aware of. All right, on to our last slide. So this slide has our current borrowing. So we have the fire truck and the UCC on there. The way that borrowing caps are calculated for municipalities is based on annual debt servicing. So it's not a max amount of debt you can carry. It's actually based on the max amount of debt that you can service in a year. And that's based on a cap within your revenues. So we are not highly leveraged. We have quite a bit of room. So the good thing about that is it means we can afford to take on more short-term debt, which could potentially save in interest costs. So we will have a funding strategy proposed at the January 30th, but we are relatively healthy in the amount of debt room that we can take on. It allows us to short-term borrow if that's what we choose. So it's nice to have that option as we can save on long-term interest costs. We're not forced to go into long-term borrowing. And that is the presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Cadman. Great presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Mafty?
I've got a couple points, but if anyone else has anything else. Basically, I'm wondering at what, if you can just refresh our memory, at what point are we going to have a chance to approve future years? Like, I understand that this is sort of like a looking forward, but for example, for 2025, 2026, like when's the approval for this?
So like when will the budget be approved?
Yeah.
So the plan here is to go through capital projects today, the operation projects the next meeting. January 30th is when the full proposed budget with property tax implications will be presented to council. Then we'll have the open house where community can come give their opinion. So there's also there's a mandated period, and we've elected to do an additional period where community can give their opinions. That way, when we come to council at the following meeting after January 30th, we'll be able to provide council's opinion. If community feedback shows that we need to go back to the drawing board, we can make adjustments. I think if I go back, we're looking around February or beginning of March is if all goes ahead, that's when we can, adopt the 5-year financial plan.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
This does seem much earlier than we normally do all these meetings.
Yeah, last year I started March 3rd, and I think we adopted beginning of April.
Yeah, so great job getting this done so earlier, and to get public feedback in case it needs to be adjusted.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? No? Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we're now moving on to report item 7.4, 2023 annual report. This report will be presented by the Manager of Corporate Services, Mr. Rotenberg.
You got it. Through the mayor, annually council is required to adopt an annual report. Generally, these reports should be adopted in June each year, but unfortunately, due to delays with the auditing process, we weren't able to bring it to you until now. The report has a significant, deals with a variety of matters. It has an overview of the organization, a message from the mayor, a message from the CAO. It outlines council's strategic priorities. And then there are department-specific reviews or summaries. So the Community Planning Department, the Parks and Recreation Department, the Fire and Emergency Services Department, Public Works, Finance and Corporate Services, a section about the Smallcraft Harbor, and then a section about the sustainability and climate action being undertaken by the district. It also includes the audited financial statements and a summary of the permissive tax exemptions issued in 2023. We're looking today for a resolution to adopt this report so we can put 2023 behind us and move on to 2025. Council should provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the report at this meeting. At this point, the report's been advertised in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter, and staff have not received any comments on the report at this point. I'm here, obviously, to answer any questions, should you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Rotenberg. Questions from council? Councillor Rafty?
No question. I like the report. I thought it was nice. It's well done.
Yeah.
I have to give all credit to Nancy. She did a phenomenal job putting this thing together.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, well done, Nancy. I noticed the Sophie report is not part of this. Is that done separately?
My understanding is the Sophie report is done separately.
Okay, good to know. All right, I see no other questions, so there is a recommendation. Councillor Rafty?
I will move that council adopt the District of Ucluelet 2023 annual report as attached.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. The next report item is 7.5, 2025 Annual Council Meeting Schedule. This report will also be presented by the Manager of Corporate Services, Mr. Rotenberg.
Thank you, through the mayor. So this report presents council's annual meeting schedule. The schedule includes council's regular council meetings and regular committee of the whole meetings. So basically the meetings that are on this schedule. Council's required to adopt a schedule like this and to give notice that the schedule can be accessed at specific locations, mainly our website and the community notice posting places. Generally, meetings are scheduled for Tuesdays at 4 p.m. with a couple exceptions. The first exception is that there are no meetings scheduled for August and only one meeting scheduled in December. The other exceptions are There's a regular committee of the whole meeting scheduled for Thursday, February 6th, a regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, March 10th, a regular council meeting scheduled for Thursday, October 2nd, and a regular committee of the whole meeting scheduled for Thursday, October 16th. These have been scheduled to avoid conflicts with either other bookings of this room or council conferences attended by council. We are looking for actually two motions today. So one motion is to adopt this schedule, which would allow us to give notice of the schedule in accordance with the community charter. The second motion is just to receive a minor update to the 5-year financial plan meeting schedule. Because the March 10th or the proposed March 10th meeting is being moved from the 11th, that would be a minor change to the schedule. It would also shorten the feedback period from March 5th, which we had anticipated would conclude on March 5th, but it would now conclude on March 4th. So that's the other part of this motion here. Once again, I'm here to answer questions if council has any. And it may be worthwhile for Councillor Mafji to come back in before the schedule is adopted to ensure that everybody's schedules align, no pun intended.
I think he felt he needed to sneeze, so he shouldn't be too long. Any questions from other councillors about the meeting schedule? The March 10th change, I think, was to do with the LGLA conference.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. We're just waiting for you to see if you had any questions about the meeting schedule.
No questions.
Okay. So there are two recommendations that should be moved separately.
Are there two?
There are. Page 87.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
I can jump on this.
Go.
Okay.
I'll move that council adopt the 2025 annual council meeting schedule as presented in Appendix A to report number 24-118 and direct staff to give notice of the 2025 annual council meeting schedule.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll
Yeah.
second that. I think I'm looking at the same thing.
Page 87.
I'm looking at the other format, 87 to 93.
Yep. There's the two motions right there.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, so you've second, Councillor Mafti second.
Yes, I second.
Any further discussion?
I won't be here for either of those dates in January. I will be in the air and not able to attend.
Okay.
Remotely either.
Good to know. That
We're
would
just approving the schedule.
the
though, right?
schedule, yeah.
Mhm.
So January 14th and the 28th you won't be here. Okay.
It's possible I could remotely attend for the 14th, but definitely not the 28th.
Okay, good to know.
I think I might have to remotely attend. I can definitely remotely attend. Yeah.
In January?
Yeah.
Councillor Hoare, anything from you? Any questions? No.
Nope.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed. That carries. And the second one?
I will further move that council receive the revised 5-year financial plan meeting schedule 2025 to 2029 as presented in Appendix B to report number 24-118.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Mafti seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed, and that carries. Thank you. And the next report is 7.6, 2025 conference attendance schedule. Mr. Rotenberg.
Through the mayor, Council generally attends conferences as a group or individually throughout the year. There are 5 main conferences that council members have attended in the past. They are the Local Government Leadership Academy Leadership Forum. I'll be just calling that LGLA from here on out. The Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Community Annual Conference, AVICC. UBCM, the Union of British Columbia Municipality Annual Convention. Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Annual Summit, VIEA. And from time to time, the mayor has attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Annual Conference and Trade Show, also known as FCM. Staff have engaged with council on the first 2 conferences already, so that's LGLA and AVICC, to gauge whom will be attending. Right now, we're recommending that 3 members attend LGLA because that's our understanding of who can attend. 4 members attend AVICC, also because that's our understanding of who can attend. No members attend FCM. This is quite expensive conference. It's quite far away, generally. And then all of council attend UBCM, and all of council attend VIEA. We have a total, an estimated total on that amount, which is about, to fund that would be about $39,950. The nominal savings from last year are associated with fewer members of the council attending some of these conferences. Council can adopt this schedule as presented, or we can amend it on the fly. Totally up to council. The benefit for staff of adopting a council schedule like this, a council attendance schedule like this, is we'll be able to tailor the budget accurately to your guys' needs and make sure that everybody is registered as registration opens and hotel reservations are allowed. So I'm obviously here to answer any questions that I can. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Rotenberg. From what I understand, 3 of us have already been registered for the LGLA conference, but the AVICC registration has not opened yet. Is that right? Okay.
That's correct.
Great. And FCM, that's usually on the other side of the country, and we don't want to spend that kind of money. I noticed in 2024 the budget was $43,250. Was that the amount that was budgeted, or was that the actual expense? Do you know?
That's the amount that was budgeted.
Budgeted. So we don't know what the actual expense was.
We still have a couple items coming in on the expense side.
Still, okay. And we can sometimes carpool and make some adjustments to our travel plans to save the district some money that way as well. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Rotenberg? Seeing none, there is a recommendation.
I'll move that mayor and council are authorized to attend and represent the District of Ucluelet at the conference listed in the 2025 conference attendance schedule attached as Appendix A to report number 24-119.
Thank you, Councillor Mafty. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, there are 3 correspondence items. The first one is from the Ucluelet Aquarium. Would anybody like to bring that forward?
It's your moment to shine, Laura.
Oh, you're coming to speak to it? This is not usually how we do things.
I set you up there, sorry.
Now you have to speak to it because you can.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, so I think if I get the gist right, the aquarium will continue to monitor and stock the washroom at the aquarium when they are open, as opposed to when they're not open. But we still provide cleaning services for that facility. Is that correct?
That's correct. Currently, we maintain the washrooms throughout the day when janitorial services is available for municipal staff.
And so, what is the major change here that's being requested?
I believe that the aquarium is looking to acquire full control over the washrooms and then possibly rejig that space so it allows for additional services for the aquarium.
Okay, great. So the best course of action is to refer this to staff?
It's up to council. We can refer it to staff and then we can bring back a report on what the potential implications are.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
On the fly here, eh? I will move that staff report back on the Ucluelet Aquarium bathroom change.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? That carries. And Laura, you can speak to this at the end of the meeting if you want to. The next item is just a letter that I wrote in response to the Housing Accelerator Fund and how important it is for us at the District of Ucluelet. I think the letter that came to us was telling us that there could be some changes to the Housing Accelerator Fund depending on how the election turned out. But I think I did a fairly good job of explaining how important it is to us, and we got nearly $2 million, and a lot of that can be used toward infrastructure, which is a crucial area of concern for us at the moment.
Good job.
Thanks. Okay, and then we have our late item of correspondence, which is 221 Monado Road, OCP and subdivision application, flood assurance statement. And I agreed to have this as a late item because I wanted the public to know how far ahead this developer is moving and working very, very hard to create some affordable housing for us in the community. They have a complicated piece of property to deal with, and it's kind of exciting though, because we will be the first municipality in British Columbia that could authorize a development in a flood zone with proper assurances in place. And so however we handle this, and if it goes ahead, we'll be the first in BC, and we'll probably set the precedent for how this is handled, which is pretty exciting. That's kind of a good news story. So basically the company that ARIF has engaged to, which is Kerwood Ladle, KWL, to determine what the flood risk is if there was a tsunami. They have signed off on lots 1, 2, 4, and 5, saying that with proper engineering, those homes would be safe if there was a tsunami. What they are saying is that the lot 3, which is proposed to develop with 11 single-family homes, the risk assessment is a little higher than the other lots, and they're looking for a letter of support from us, from the district, to say that we're okay with that level of risk. And so just wanted to open the conversation with council to see how everybody feels. It was a fairly lengthy report with a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, just looking to open up the conversation on this. If anybody wants to start.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I read through the KWL report and then cross-referenced the provincial guidelines, which were coincidentally written by one of the staff members at KWL, so it's pretty current. And I know there was some concern related to liability. However, in the provincial guidelines, there are templates for that indemnify council and municipalities. So what they're looking for is for us to basically sign off that we're comfortable with the methodology they used to get to a risk rating of low. So in order to do this letter of assurance, it's part of the process for council to agree to, the findings in that report. So when ARIF was asked to provide a letter of assurance, this is the process, and so this was always going to come along, so this is not something new. It's here, and after reading through it several times, I'm comfortable with where we're at, and I'm happy to see that there's predetermined or almost filled out waivers of liability. And there will be covenants on the lot that indemnify us from it. So I'm comfortable going forward with providing this letter of support to KWL.
Okay, so currently the district has no risk tolerance policy. I don't even know if any municipality has a risk tolerance policy. But I do concur with staff on this particular instance that it would be good to refer this to our solicitors and to MIABC, our insurance company, just to, they won't give us an opinion, but they will give us some feedback as to how liable we might actually be if and when a tsunami happens and there is damage to buildings and possibly loss of life. I think we need to do our due diligence and just get those two entities to tell us that yes, we're okay if we sign off on this this level of risk.
This letter does not change the fact that there's going to be covenants and those will have to be reviewed by lawyers. But the process is that we get the report and we sign off on that report and it gets submitted and then there will be covenants put in place. So that's where the lawyers come in. So my fear and my concern is that we're adding a delay that doesn't necessarily change the outcome of whether we talk to lawyers or not. Like, we have to move the process forward if we want to get to affordable housing. And this is one of those processes that we have to follow. It's not even mandated that the district receive a flood assurance statement. So the fact that we asked for that extra layer, which wasn't really necessary, that's a discretionary item, has triggered this. So we could move that. We don't want to do the letter of assurance, and we can move forward based on the site-specific analysis. But we've agreed to move forward with the highest level, the absolute highest level, which was provided by the person who wrote the provincial or mandates or guidelines on the subject. We're dealing with the highest level already. So when we hear that and there's templates in the provincial the provincial guidelines that show us how to indemnify ourselves, I don't think there's a reason to stall the approval of the letter. Like, I just think we have to keep moving forward, and I don't think any of the concerns raised about liability are sufficient to stalling this letter.
So there could be covenants for those 11 people buying those homes, saying they understand the risk, they understand that they could lose their home in a tsunami, and that they shouldn't sue the district. But I've been told that you can't enforce the fact that they shouldn't sue the district, and I'm looking to Mr. Lawrence for some feedback on that.
Thank you, Mayor. So a covenant can provide a level of requirements from the landowners, which is adopted by council. When we're talking about risk tolerance and risk for the municipality, it is what is the potential liability in the event of a tsunami in this location and the damage to the property and infrastructure and potential loss of life, and then what is the potential outcome of that occurrence to the municipality. Now, staff, we're unable to answer that question for council, but when we're contemplating and reading the report from KWL, it is asking the municipality to say that it's okay that we are accepting that risk level, and that is something that only council can determine if that is an acceptable level of risk. It is normal for council to ask staff to investigate the report and provide a follow-up report with information for council's due diligence to make sure whatever you're agreeing to is fully understood and contemplated by council and is acceptable to the community. So at this time, like, staff are unable to advise council one way or the other as to, is this an acceptable level of risk? Is the report, which is from our reading, very good. As Councillor Kennington indicated, some of the top professionals that understand flood risk assessments have drafted this report. They advised the province on this information. That being said, it is important for a council to review it and ensure that they're doing their due diligence and have a review of the report by usually a third party. Our solicitors could provide input for it. Our insurance organization can provide context. And if they come back saying, yep, this is all good, you can protect the community in perpetuity for any potential liability, then they can advise council of that. If, on the other hand, they come back and say, no, this is something that will ride with the land and ride with the municipality in perpetuity of that development, then council needs to know that. And unfortunately, at this point in time, staff cannot provide that insight because there is, as far as staff are aware, there is no development that has been approved in a tsunami flood risk area that has received approval for a new subdivision. So there are older buildings, older lots in risk adverse scenarios for flood risk and tsunami risk, but they're pre the updated legislation. The current legislation is pretty clear. The province has generally a zero risk tolerance. The municipality does not have a risk tolerance policy. It hasn't been contemplated by council and the community. So this is why we're unable to advise council at this point in time, but would strongly recommend that council receive additional information with respect to this request so that you can fully understand and contemplate it in the context of the lasting implications to the community moving forward.
And my question about having a covenant telling a homeowner they can't sue us, is that defendable?
It is my understanding that in law that you cannot prohibit somebody from executing their right to sue. So although you can say you can acknowledge the risk, they can understand that they have a house that's prone to tsunami, that would be inundated, that there would be damage, that there's a potential loss of life, and that can be done under covenant. It can be reinforced within the strata bylaws. But that being said, you cannot preclude somebody from engaging a legal firm and executing a legal action if they so choose. They may or may not win. This is where separate legal advice would come in handy for council to be able to speak to that matter. Okay, I guess I just have so many questions. Like, if
if there is a tsunami and there's damage to those 11 homes, is the strata responsible for paying for those damages? Or is the district responsible? I guess I just have some questions that I would like a little bit more feedback from our solicitors and the insurance company, just to verify that that report is everything it says and that we are okay accepting that level of risk.
I think we're going to have the opportunity to do that in due time, and I've looked into this, and from what I understand, all we'd be doing right now is basically saying that the report prepared by KWL indicating an acceptable low level of risk, that we're aware of that, and that we're okay with that. At no point are we taking on any liability. Like that part of it, I understand to be pretty clear that there's nothing that we can say or do at this point that would make us liable or put us at any risk of liability. For us to get a second opinion from a lawyer is basically just going to have a lawyer tell us, well, you're not going to be liable. And I share Councillor Kennington's concern that I know how many moving parts there must be, and every delay is gonna turn into a challenge. And I know that we've seen that with other developments. Looking at Mr. Cadman's budget, like even for a pickup truck, every time something gets pushed down the line, we jack up the cost 15-20% because that's the climate we're dealing with, as far as inflation and costs. And so I think that this is really just the way to proceed is we don't, like, this isn't even necessary for us at this point. All we need to do is just say, hey, we're aware of this, and let the process move forward. What we do have is an opportunity to sort of jump in and say, well, hang on, stop the press, let's get a lawyer to give us an opinion which isn't going to really tell us anything, and then resume the process. Like, all it's going to do is add time. And so for that reason, I'd be inclined to move forward and say, yeah, according to the report that we've seen from, the experts in the field, we agree with them that it's low risk. Like, I'm not a flood risk expert, and neither's a lawyer. And if the report prepared by the flood risk expert says it's low risk, all we're doing now is saying, yeah, we believe the flood risk expert, which, like, I can't imagine a scenario where I'd be like, no. This independent report compiled by an expert, I disagree with it. Like, that's all that we're debating here as far as I understand it.
I have to ask the question, when we asked for a flood assurance statement, surely we could see what was coming down the road, and any report back other than low, I mean, it's low, like that's the best we could expect. So if that's the case, why are we waiting till now to bring lawyers in? Like, if we asked for this, we should have been prepared to receive the information. And so if we're moving towards a goal, let's do it in parallel, not in sequence, because it's the sequential delays that lead to the death of housing provision. So let's just move everything forward at the same time, and when we get to the end, we can sort it all out. But at this point, I think I would like to I would like to get this letter signed, and so that we can at least cement what that report is, and that's a piece that we can use to make further decisions down the line. I don't think there's any reason to delay it further.
Mr. Lawrence?
I understand Council's commentary there. I do believe that there's a couple of things within the statement that jump out at me. The primary one is the statement that states that the risk of mortality associated with the development of Lot 3 is acceptable at 1 in 142,000. That is council accepting that level of risk. by authorizing and providing a letter that stipulates that we accept that there is, or council accept that there is a potential mortality rate of 1 in 142,000, or 18% of a resident in that development that may result in a loss of life. That is a substantial commitment on the municipality where you're saying this is okay. Whether providing the legal input to council is not about qualifying or quantifying the report. The experts have written the report. It is more for council to understand the implications to the community by signing off on this request, which is council accepting, saying, yes, mortality rate, it's low, 1 in 142,000, that's good, or that's acceptable. I think it is important for a council, when contemplating an item like that, to ensure that they have the justifications on why it's acceptable, right? Whatever that is. This is where we, staff at this point in time can't advise council on, is this it's a good rate? Is it a bad rate? Is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable? I can't advise on that, but there is a significant implication associated that, and it would be appropriate for council to ask, what does this mean for the municipality if somebody were to die in this development, to the long-term well-being of the community and of the community. Sorry.
Good.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I think there's never zero risk. I mean, the 1 in 400 or 142,000 is the risk of living in the United Kingdom is 1 in 40,000. So I think we're talking about such a minimal number here that what's the risk of having a home in the Okanagan in a forest? I think we talked about that earlier. There's there's never not a risk. When I was looking at the annual report, excuse me, we had our priorities and the message from the mayor as well, and it was all about doing what we can to aid development and pull things out of the way and get things going with the Housing Accelerator Fund and things like that. When we have we're kind of in a tough spot for affordable housing here, and we don't really have. The longer we delay these things, the more the bill goes up. That's just the end of it. And I totally agree. Sorry, that due diligence is incredibly important in this case, and I'm the last person to stop that. But I spent a lot of time reading this, and I went through the KWL report top to bottom. I read it twice. I went through the entire flood hazard area land use management guidelines from the province, and I just didn't see that liability that we're talking about. In fact, there's forms that indemnify, and it goes out of the way for the province to indemnify municipalities in this particular case. And then the fact that we didn't really need the flood assurance statement, but that was something that's not mandated by the province, just the municipality. So that's not even something that was necessarily mandatory, but it was something that we asked of them. So not only did they go to multiple entities, they went to, was Stantec, Ebbwater, then it turns out it was a new guy at KWL. KWL had to do modeling and get a third party to come in and do that. It just went on and on to the point now that we've got this flood hazard assessment. Our particular OCP says that we have, our interim policy that doesn't have a risk level associated with it, and it is site specific based on this assessment for those specific sites is what we did. It was done. So when the assessment was done on lot 3, they came back, and essentially when you read that report top to bottom, the risk is so low. I don't know where else to go with this other than to say that, okay, I as a councillor accept this because you've got the top people in the province. There's no one higher than the fellow that signed off on this. And he's not saying that we have to accept responsibility or we have to, all he's saying is that we've read it and accept it is all he's asking for. You've read it, we look at it, we accept that minimal number. And so at that point I was like, okay, I've read this twice. It's so low It's so low versus what's the risk tolerance? What's the risk of not building affordable housing and having people that are like, dire need of homes right now? But this standard that we're looking at that we've gone to for this report from KWL is based on international best practices that indicate that this is incredibly low risk, but also just the idea that the proponent was able to sit down and meet with our emergency services fire chief to come up with a risk management plan, which and actually made some changes to the location of a road and a home down there. We came up with an evacuation plan. So I just that's like I read them and I can't help but think that at some point we just have to say, okay, I personally accept this risk. I mean, it's quite low versus just kicking this thing down the can and down the road and having the end user that has to pay extra for one of these affordable places down the road. I can't in good conscience put that extra cost on those people. After reading what I've read, I found that it's an acceptable risk tolerance in my opinion. That's it for me.
I just want to jump in, and I think it's important to note and to clarify that all we'd be getting a legal opinion on, as far as I understand the situation, is someone's going to say, yeah, this is what you're agreeing to. You're agreeing that you've understood the report. It's not asking us to take on that liability. It's just asking us to confirm that we've read a report that we technically don't even require, that's telling us that this is a minimal risk. And I think you hit the nail on the head about balancing risk here. It's on the one hand, what risk do we face from a liability perspective? Zero. What risk does someone living in one of those houses face? Absolutely minimal. You could live anywhere and face a risk. What risk do we as a community face by adding another hoop to this process? Well, we risk affecting the margins that are factored in to a proposal that's going to create affordable housing. I think this is something that has, at least in my time on council, has come up again and again, is the more we delay, the more stuff costs. Affordable housing is about margins. Every time we delay an affordable housing development, we're cutting into those margins. And I know firsthand that we've had developers that have said, you know what, we've delayed too long. We can't meet those margins. We're not going to be able to offer this. And I don't know, to my mind, this is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, the largest risk identified in that report is people on the ground, not in those houses either. So if someone is walking on the Wild Pacific Trail, they're going to get wiped out more likely than somebody sitting in their living room in this house. So the district's already going to be in major deep water, pardon the pun, if there's a tsunami. So they just pile it on. I mean, there's literally a trail proposed that will be lower than the land that these houses are going to be sitting on, and people are not going to have the time to get out. So are we going to ask the Wild Pacific Trail Society to provide these kinds of flood assurance statements for people using our infrastructure and our roads and our stop signs? Sorry, Mark. I agree with what you're saying. There is risk in anything, and it's just it's coming to terms with what we're comfortable with. The risk of getting struck by lightning, getting killed by lightning, is lower than this, is higher than this. This is lower than getting struck by lightning. There's just a whole list of things like getting killed by a falling coconut and whatnot. All of these things are more likely, so we don't run around with helmets on. We just have to live our lives, and yeah, I think it's time to just keep moving forward.
I agree, and the one thing I think we have to keep in mind too is this has 11 houses, right on the water. There's the majority of the development is up and is completely out of this assessment. They're fine, they're good to go. It's just those 11 on the front. So I think they're just saying, okay, we've done this report on the 11 because those are the ones closest to the water. So are you, after reading this report, that have you read it? Do you agree with it? And it's because you've got the top people saying this is an incredibly low risk. I say, okay, that this makes sense to me. If there's no one higher to ask this to, and I feel like anything else that we do extraneous to having the top engineer come with this report is adding undue time onto this that costs the end user.
People at home may not realize this, and it's not these 11 homes that are at risk. It's the entire development that's at risk. So these 11 homes are going to fund the homes that are not going to make any profit at all. So it's extremely important, and we can't say, oh yeah, we want all this affordable housing, but we're not going to allow you to build the homes that are going to pay for everything. So I mean, it's extremely important.
Councillor Hoare, anything from you?
Most of my points have been made. Thank you, guys, for doing that for me. I have to say that I agree. It is, to me, an acceptable level of risk, very low. Really, I think, given the storm this past week, getting hit by lightning is definitely a much more likely thing to happen. For those of you that saw that video. And it is just us, saying that we've read the report and that it's acceptable. I don't like delaying affordable housing projects either. And I don't think this is a case of rushing something unduly either, because there's definitely due diligence in this. And, more than due diligence, because this is an extra report, looking at the flood risk. And yeah, I don't have a problem with it myself. And I'm generally pretty risk adverse.
Any final comments, Mr. Lawrence?
The decision as to whether or not the acceptable level of risk is one of council. I would like to point out one point of clarity is with respect to the flood assurance statement and the requirement of the municipality. So the municipality currently has two options, is under the provincial legislation, is to either not allow development in flood averse areas or require a flood risk assessment and assurance statement. So council is partly right. Yet we don't have to request this. It can be avoided through an avoidance policy. If you're choosing to move forward with a development in a tsunami risk area, then that's where the flood assurance statement comes in. Again, I can only comment that staff have had this for a week and a bit. We have not been able to complete a report for council. I understand the importance and the linkage to affordable housing with respect to this development in particular, and that is affordable housing an incredible priority for council and for the community as a whole. At the same time, it is I need to make sure that council understands that when we're reading this, when staff is reading this report and what the request is, there's more to it than just council saying, we've read the report and this sounds good. There is a liability implication here that staff sees. If council determines that it's still acceptable and that no additional information is required, then that's council's prerogative. But I would say in the strongest terms that council should get more information on this. It hasn't been done in the past. This is the first time a flood assurance statement has been requested. I have not come across, nor do I know of any other communities that have contemplated something like this in building in a flood risk area, and that it would be appropriate for council to request additional information so that you have 100% surety of the decisions that you're making do not have unforeseen consequences for the community long term, and also to make sure that as this goes through the approval process, that everything is done. We don't want the developer to come across any hidden mines later on down the process. It is an expedited process that we're undertaking here for this development, which comes with some risks for surprises, but we want to try to avoid those at as much as possible. So I'll leave it with council. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them as I am able. I'll leave it up to council.
I'm curious about the forms that indemnify the municipality. That was part of the provincial.
Yeah, it's on page 41. There's two forms for that specifically indemnifies, and you can just fill them out.
Page 41 of the provincial.
Yeah, I can send you a link if you like. It is I have it up here.
What's the document called?
I'm just scrolling to the top here. It is the Flood Hazard Area Land Use Management Guidelines. And then on page 41 is
There it is, right here.
Flood hazard area.
There it is, right. I don't know if you can see that. Flood hazard area land use management guidelines. And then the form is on, is it page 40?
Page 41.
There's two forms, I think.
Have you seen those forms, Mr. Lawrence?
I have seen them, but I would be remiss to be able to comment on them and how they apply at this point in time. I'd need to review them and be able to provide council with insightful comment.
I'm comfortable with them. It's like literally on their site right now, so it's not an outdated document or anything like that. This is the current guidelines.
Yeah, and I checked that as well to make sure that it wasn't outdated. It was amended in 2018, I think was the last part, but
It's a living document, so it's not going to be something that's replaced. It'll just be continually amended, but at this current stage of the game, this is what stands.
And can you read the part that indemnifies the municipality?
Well, it's a covenant. Oh, and now my computer stopped scrolling.
Of course.
Sean, do you have it?
He's looking.
yeah.
Mayor McEwen,
Mm-hmm.
I believe Bruce has a fuller understanding of those forms and can provide a little bit more context on them.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some notes from
Clayton Hiles.
the K. What's the name of the firm?
KWL.
KWL. And it specifically says no liability for council, whichever path council takes. It is important to know that the council and staff have no liability for the approval. The provincial guidelines have a carefully worded 5-page waiver of liability drafted by provincial legal teams to protect council and staff from any liability used as a covenant restriction binding the developer and all future owners, so there is never liability for council. That's from the top people in the industry. Mr. Craig.
Through the mayor, just the context of in the subdivision process, that our understanding, this is unusual for a municipality that would take on that liability or allow for construction in an area that may be prone to
Can you
flood.
speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry. The way the provincial sort of framework around the subdivision approval of in areas subject to flood risk is generally sort of pushes towards avoiding those areas. The flood assurance statement certainly is something that the engineers and geoscientists at BC, they have guidelines around that. My understanding is that this is a little where we're at essentially is the engineers have signed off and say they can provide that assurance statement for all the areas where the grade would be raised and most of the housing on the site. They cannot or will not sign off on the 11 lots, which essentially is asking council, are you okay taking some of that liability? That's our understanding. What I think we're suggesting that further advice would be perhaps prudent before making that decision. And those indemnity covenants are typical when the flood assurance statement is provided with no conditions, with no request from the municipality to accept or tolerate a level of risk. But if the engineer were just saying this is entirely safe, there would still be a covenant on the property for the subdivision, and that's what that format is for. We're not aware of any that have where a subdivision has been approved with the municipality accepting some level of risk. So I think that's the decision point rather than just accepting the report.
But this says that there is no liability to council.
You know, regardless of whether there's liability or not, we have to take responsibility for housing people as well. That's our responsibility. And is there some risk? Sure. Will we get sued? Potentially. But that's a risk that we need to take at this time. We're in a critical stage. We've got lawsuits coming out of our ass right now. So what's another one? I mean, if we're going to house people, let's house people.
Okay, well, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Sorry, that was inappropriate.
But yeah, I feel your frustration. I get it. I don't know what. Like when I read through it, it seems to me that the risk is just, that we've got the top person in BC that wrote the guidelines that we're talking about. He wrote them. So, and he says it's low and there's no one higher. And we just want to get this thing to move one step forward. It's not like there's no recourse. If, I don't think there's a massive mistake here where there's going to be someone else that comes down and says, hey, don't build those there. This is, you'll be liable for these, it's a 1 in 142,000 chance. And it's like it's in, I think in the UK, it's 1 in 100,000 for the average citizen. And think about that. It's, they're taking a much greater risk just by living in the UK. To me, it's like you just can't stop building and you can't stop progress because you're just going to constantly add on another report that has to be read by someone else and hire a consultant to get a consultant to read what a consultant wrote. So at some point, I just think we have to move forward. And I can't help but read the KWL report and think this is about as holistic as you could possibly get for something that isn't even provincially mandated. We've actually they've gone way beyond where they needed to go. So I don't know, I feel comfortable calling a vote on this. I don't know if that makes sense. I would just go ahead and say there's the 3 items that we need written, and then we just sign and then we get that flood assurance statement just comes back to us, and that's their statement. And we just say that we accept that by what we've read.
So there are 3 items that that would be moved separately, I would imagine.
I'm not totally sure on how to read, how we want to put this forward.
It's part of the late agenda package. It's on page 4 of the late agenda package.
I have these here. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, how do I want to word this?
None of that mentions getting the signed letter. So I'll make one motion to start. I'll move that staff prepare a letter acknowledging the risk assessment is acceptable on the condition that the BC drafted waiver is signed, protecting staff and council from any liability. The flood report can then be issued with a flood assurance statement.
So, Mr. Rotenberg, are you? If it's written down, can you give it to Mr. Rotenberg?
And I think there's the 3 points we want to add in there about the
We can make as many motions as we like for council.
right.
Yeah, none of those three mentioned the letter.
We'll just put that up on the side for you guys.
Perfect.
Okay, for those at home, staff are just drafting up the potential motion.
This is how the sausage gets made.
I think we need these 3 points in here. Yeah. So let's just take these over to Joe. So you can see if you can look right at them. Oh yeah. This is in the KWL report.
No, there's the late agenda, which is a letter.
Right. So those points are in the actual record. Perfect.
I don't know that that last sentence needs to be there. The flood report can be issued with a flood assurance statement because that's on KWL to do that. They're just looking for confirmation of our acceptance of the risk level.
Get a mic, sorry.
There's a mic here.
That's okay, I can run. If I may, I might suggest that within this resolution that we modify it, say that council directs staff to prepare a letter acknowledging the risk assessment provided by the KWL report.
For lot 3.
For lot 3, yes. And that way it's referencing that particular lot and the report. Yeah, please.
I hear what you're saying. So we probably need to say proposed lot 3 because it's currently not lot 3 of 221 Monado.
We'll reference the report and that will.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
And then just add flood assessment 221. Perfect.
Sorry, I could have passed it to you.
Sahara Desert.
Mm.
Great. I think that'll work.
Do we need to reference lot 3 or anything like that?
No, it encapsulates it in the report.
We'll just wait for Councillor Anderson to get back in the room.
I saw him getting into his car.
It's like, that's it, I'm out of here.
Just like throw the grenade.
Poor Laura. She's just waiting here for a comment period. She's just...
Those bathrooms down there are pretty close to the water. Have you looked into the implications if there was a tsunami surge while someone's...
How do we do?
I think we have a motion drafted.
Do we need to add those points in about the dike?
That would be separate. This is the first motion. Are you satisfied with that, Mr. Lawrence, that motion?
That would be up to Councillor Kennington, but I believe this captures the report and the required information for the motion.
Okay, on that note, I will move that council direct staff to prepare a letter acknowledging the risk assessment provided by Kerr, Wood, Ladle Consulting Engineers in their report, Flood Assessment 221 Monado Road, Ucluelet, as acceptable, on the condition that the BC drafted waiver is signed protecting staff and council from any liability.
Thank you, Councillor Kennington. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. So I believe the other 3 points are on page 4 of the late agenda.
Well, that
So we don't need the other 3 points at all then,
those 3 points would be in the report.
in the report.
Sorry, Mayor, if I may, I believe that the consulting engineers, KWL, need a specific motion from council that highlight those 3 specific points. So in the letter provided by Arif, then in the middle of the commentary, it says the council has reviewed. Starting with that, if you change it to that council has reviewed the risk assessment prepared and go through those 3 points, I believe that would provide the required motion that KWL is looking for.
Well, we have it before us. We just have to change the to that. If somebody would like to move that.
I don't want to do it all.
Sorry, I just want to be clear. Are we what page are you?
Here.
Page 4 of the late agenda.
Those are the motions.
Oh yeah, no. So this is pulled. This is
Oh, it's
pulled
pulled right
directly
out of the
from the
report.
report.
Okay.
So, all right. I'll move that. Okay, I'll move that council has reviewed the risk assessment prepared by Kerwood Ladle for 221 Monotto Road, Ucluelet, and confirms that the risk set out in the report is acceptable, including number 1, that this development may proceed in the absence of a standard dike. Number 2, that the development of Lot 3 with 11 houses represents a nominal increase to the housing density on the DOU tsunami flood plan. And number 3, that the risk of mortality associated with the development of Lot 3 at 1 to 142,000 annually is acceptable.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. All right, we're moving on to Mayor's announcements and Council Committee reports. So under Mayor's announcements, I just wanted to speak to the storm called the bomb cyclone. I don't know who made that up, but that's what we had. And just take this opportunity to thank all the crews that helped out, the fire rescue team, Public Works, BC Hydro, and many other contractors and emergency personnel for all the help that they provided during that event. We have a couple of events coming up. Tomorrow is the seniors lunch at Forest Glen, and I believe Miss Fortune is our keynote speaker for that, talking about the accessibility committee. So that's look forward to seeing you there. Friday, November 29th, Mayor and some councillors are doing a ribbon cutting and walk on Peninsula Road at 3 o'clock, starting at the corner of Forbes and Peninsula to celebrate the completion of the Peninsula Road Safety and Revitalization Project. So hopefully, this went out in Yuki Mail, so hopefully we have a little bit of a crowd there to help us celebrate. That's followed by a stop at the Village Green, serving hot chocolate by Mayor and some councillors, and some live music. That's so that'll be Friday at 4:30, I think. Yes, 4:30 to 6. And then, of course, Friday is Midnight Madness, so that's an opportunity to do all your Christmas shopping at all the local stores, and hopefully help support some of those Peninsula Road businesses that really were affected by the road upgrade. And there's also a Yuki Christmas Craft Fair Sunday, December 1st at the secondary school gymnasium. So that's all local artisans, crafts, food, and festive fun. Followed by the community holiday lunch, which is Wednesday, December 4th from 11:30 to 1:30 here at the community center in the main hall. Always a fantastic event. There'll be a great festive buffet, live music, door prizes, and more. So those are all the upcoming events that I know of anyway. So we'll move on to council committee reports and start with Councillor Anderson.
All right. Yeah, and moving back a little bit, if I can respectfully ask if we can get the report done as quick as possible, just in the interest that after the next report, I think there's a span there over the winter. If we could get the public hearing notice, if we can get to that level ahead of the time so that we can get that in the newspaper, that would be, if that's possible, if you guys could do that, that'd be great. For things that I did, I think there was economic development meeting with Josh Jenkins and the economic development committee. That was great. The Ukulele Thought were there. Melissa and Boucher and Chuck McCarthy were there, and that was great because on the Zoom call we had Cheryl McClay, and that was a great meeting. So we got to be in a really early stage of some ideas that we had moving forward for Blue Economy. After meeting Cheryl at the Vancouver Economic Alliance, that was she was definitely on board with some of the ideas, and we all talked to her about that. So we had some great ideas there, and then the next day we were able to tour a site that could be of interest to the town for sure. And then what else was there? The only other thing that we had was the resort development strategy meeting and Abby did a great job on that. So we had all the potential RMI projects up on the wall, and that was attended. Like, there was a lot of people there, and people were really interested in seeing what the options were. And yeah, those posters on the wall, you did a great job. And then there was a survey that went out, so we had a clipboard and lots of people did that. So I was impressed with that turnout. That was great. And that's about it for me.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hoare, anything for you?
Nothing to report.
Councillor Kennington?
Sean always steals the thunder because we're on the same committee, so I never get to. But you did get one thing wrong. We had an economic development committee meeting, which was a separate meeting from the Cheryl McClay one. Yeah, on the
we did.
5th. Right. Oh no, not on the 5th. On the 14th, and then it was the following Thursday. We met with Chuck and Melissa and the team to go over the opportunities in seaweed and Blue Economy. So, yeah, it was great to sit down with Melissa and Chuck and Corey and really start to put our heads together on what we can do together. So that was super exciting, and the opportunities are. It's hard to sleep at night for the right reasons sometimes, and that was one of them.
I miss Corey Rich, the economic development officer for the Ukulele Thought. Yeah, he was there too. Sorry, yeah.
And was that meeting specifically for Blue Economy projects?
It was initially regarding seaweed, but it turned into a much bigger piece, and a lot of ideas floating around. All of them were well received. So really, the largest part of that is the collaboration with YFN, and the meetings sort of dominated that, and Cheryl was sort of sitting there listening to us all working together, and I think you could see it in her eyes that she was excited to see that kind of collaboration happening in real time, and the outcome was very positive. So, and then of course we did a little bit of a tour around town, exploring opportunities for the community, and I'm super excited about what's coming.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Mafty?
Nothing to report, although last time my internet cut me off right before the announcements, and I had just attended, I guess, not the last, but the second last seniors luncheon, and talked a little bit about the res and what we do, and yeah, the event was awesome. The food was great, and it was jam packed in there. And I heard you highlighting the next one, and yeah, I really enjoyed myself, and I was grateful for the invite, and yeah, it was a lovely time.
Great. Glad you went. For myself, November 13th, I attended the Barclay Community Forest Corporation meeting. They have some new signs that they have produced that they will be unveiling shortly and installing, just identifying where the community forest actually is. So that's great. I haven't seen a preview of it. I'm waiting to see something on social media for that. That same day, I attended an ACRD board meeting in the afternoon. Nothing too specific for the West Coast. And then 5 o'clock that day was the RDS open house at the UCC, which was really well attended, as Councillor Anderson said. And yeah, that survey is still live if people want to mention projects that they are, passionate about. And I didn't see anybody from the skate park group there, but I did run into one of them who has received the survey and has spread it far and wide to get lots and lots of people to vote for the skate park improvements. So you'll see some movement in that direction. November 17th, I attended the PRAS, Pacific Rim Arts Society, AGM, here at the UCC, celebrating 55 years of their existence. It was really well attended. There were about 50 people here, and yeah, there's some great presentations and good food, and really enjoyed that afternoon. And on November 21st, because it happened right after our power was out, I missed the ACRD meeting at the airport where the MOU was celebrated, signing the MOU between the airport with the ACRD and Taloquit First Nation. So, but I heard that it went really well. But because it was the day after the storm, a lot of us were still working, trying to get our internet up and running, and so I missed that meeting, but I heard it went well. All right, we are now moving on to question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and comment on matters within Council's jurisdiction. Representations about bylaws that Council is prohibited from holding a public hearing on, or bylaws that were subject to a public hearing, are not permitted at this time. Are there any audience members that wish to address Council? Laura!
Didn't see that one coming.
Yay. So my name is Laura Griffith Cochran. I'm the Executive Director of the Ucluelet Aquarium Society. And I wanted to be here because I put forward a letter talking about how the aquarium would like to take over management of the public washrooms that are at the end of the Ucluelet Aquarium building. And I thought I'd be here in case you have any questions, and if you'd like me to expand a bit on why we want to take that over.
Mr. Lawrence sort of summarized, but feel free to expand.
Great. Okay, so when we built the facility in 2012, we received some funding from the District of Ucluelet in exchange for us making some of the bathrooms accessible from the outside. And it was fantastic support, and there were no public washrooms in the area at the time. And so it was like meeting two goals for the community. And as we've developed and grown, we didn't have a comprehensive document to outline all of the different ways that we were going to co-manage the facility. And so I think because we work really well together as the two organizations, the district and the Ucluelet, we've kind of found a natural flow of things over the years, but that over the years we've also grown significantly, and there's a few challenges that have come up from that. So for example, a really good one was this week with the big power outage. The sewer pumps to pump the sewage out of the basement of the aquarium into the community sewage system run off of our generator. And so during the power outage, we had to go to the panel at the back and shut off power to the community bathrooms, put signs on the door, because otherwise we would quickly deplete the emergency propane that we have to keep the facility running and keep all of our specimens safe. So other things have been hot water tank leakages that happen on the weekends, or one time we had a freshwater line that blew up, which was exciting, but horrible. And then there's been a couple times, and by a couple, I mean like quite a few times, that we've responded to different emergency scenarios where either a sink or a toilet is overflowing on the weekends. Or sometimes we've gone in because a smoke detector is going off. And those are kinds of situations where even though we are managing things separately, it still does reflect on us because it's part of our facility. And it's also something that is taking some of our staff time to respond to. And so I'd like to fully take over. And so the plan is that we would renovate and we would close off. There would be no more doors on the outside. The bathrooms would be only accessible from within the facility. And that way we would have more control on how they're being used and when they're being used. Currently, whenever a parent comes to the front of the building and they're holding a toddler and they're like, "Do you have a bathroom?" we never send them like, "No, go all the way around." Like, when bathrooms are needed, bathrooms are needed. So we recognize that we're in an area that has a lot of people and needs a lot of washrooms. And so our plan is that we would continue to do that. We would just hopefully avoid some of the pants being flushed down and other irregular items, as well as some of the things that have gone on that we've had to respond to on the weekends. Yeah. And recognizing that the biggest need for bathrooms is in the summer when we're open, and during the daytime, like the Sunday markets, we're open and we're close by during those times. When we're closed down from December through February, that's when our town is also at its slowest level. And so I think that with the new investment in the Cedar lot, parking lot, that will we can concentrate traffic to there, and that will be enough for the community. Any questions so far?
Any questions from council?
Where am I going to flush my pants now?
Yeah.
Good question.
That's it. Does sound like when you explained it before, it's a pretty big vulnerability for the aquarium. Like
it is
these two external doors, and you're not there like at these times, right? So anything can happen in there, and it could be too late before you can respond to it, or someone can respond. So I could see that as a definite point of anxiety for sure.
It is. So all of our, like some of our freezers, our electrical panels, a lot of those, this is unfortunately, like if I could go back in time, but those are in the basement, and we've had more than a dozen floods where things have been flushed, and we've had to respond to sewage floods in the basement. I just want to give a shout out to Rod, the plumber in town, who's been amazing and has always shown up when we needed him. It's just been so fantastic. But I'd really like to rein those things in and, not have those happen.
That makes total sense. Okay, well, thank you for being here and for explaining your rationale. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
Thank you. Any other audience members that wish to address council? Yes.
Hi, I'm Josh from 1151 Rupert Road in Ucluelet. Also the CEO of ERIF, and I'm not going to chime in on the conversation that happened tonight, but just talk in a larger concept. And I've sat in many different municipalities around the province where they say delivering affordable homes is an impossibility. And I've sat in some that are not very dissimilar to the way that Ucluelet is and runs in regards to cost base of land and cost base of construction. And I've had municipalities and staff and just say at me straight across the table, it's just impossible to deliver affordability in this day and age. But what I wanted to say is to actually deliver something that some people feel is impossible really does take a great team with courage and strength to say, we will get past obstacles, we will fight where people give up, we will. And so I just wanted to acknowledge, like, you know, staff and council in regards to saying when things do get tough, that's when the weak give up and the tough get going. And so, like, you know, understanding that the tsunami policy is a moving target. It's moved a lot since 2014, it's moved since 2018, it'll move again in 2028 as technology changes, and, you know, ultimately it'll all be too risky to live on Earth and we'll go and live on Mars, according to Elon Musk. So there's risk everywhere, but it's about us being able to say, let's not put people in danger, let's do the best that we can, and let's work together to try and find solutions. And when we can find solutions, and that's why it's been a bit painful in regards to the delay of finding the best people in the business to try and deal with these issues. And when we get the best advice we possibly can, we look at that advice and we say, what do we do to go forward, and how can we protect people, and how do we protect the municipality? Because we don't want to put the municipality at risk or people at risk or any of those things. They're all very, very important things for us to protect. But I've got to say I'm excited about what the potential of what we can deliver in the community as far as affordable housing. But it is going to take a cooperative approach from town, cooperative approach from staff, cooperative approach from the municipality and the councillors and the mayor to say, hey, this is something that we want and something that we'll fight for, and it will make our town great, and therefore it's worth fighting for. So I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time tonight to fight for it. And as much as whether there was differings of opinion, that doesn't matter. It's all about saying, hey, we want to try and do what's right. And whatever that looks like, hopefully it'll be the right thing for us to do. Anyway, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Josh. No, I think we've beat that one to death tonight, so we'll leave it there. Are there any members of the public attending by Zoom or telephone that wish to address council?
If there is anyone online via Zoom, please raise your hand. If anyone wishes to speak via telephone, please dial *9. I see no hands raised at this time.
And have we received any emails to communityinput@ucluelet.ca during the meeting?
There are no correspondence items to address at this time.
All right, I will move that the November 26th, 2024 regular council meeting be adjourned at 6:38.
I'll second that.
Councillor Kennington seconds. All in favor? Oh, awesome. Perfect. And just a reminder, the Army Navy is having their AGM tonight at 7. And they promise it's going to be really fun.